The fact that she planned her trip before she even got engaged shows how quickly she was moving toward getting married. When it came out that Joni Lamb, the once loved Daystar mother, had been fired, everyone was shocked. The shocking turn happened after Joyce Meyer, a well-known and respected Christian leader, told shocking facts that no one saw coming. What did Joyce say that made her turn against Joni? Why was Joni suddenly in such bad shape after being devoted to Daystar for so long? Stay tuned to find out why Joni Lamb was so shockingly fired from Daystar. Speculations about Joni Lamb. For many years, Joni Lamb was one of the most well-known names in Christian media. She was credited with helping to create Daystar, a network that became a major player in church TV. But recently, reports started to spread, and the whispers behind closed doors got louder. The life of Daystar and the Lamb family didn't look like the picture of peace and faith it had seemed to be in the past. When people began to question Joni's actions as minister, that was the first sign of trouble. People who knew what was going on started to talk about how she wanted to be in charge more and more. Some people who worked in the church said that Joni had been pulling away from others, especially those who had helped make Daystar what it is today. No longer was it just about running a network. She had to keep a tight hold on the power she had. Some stories even said that her way of leading had become more authoritarian, with people who didn't agree with her vision being quietly pushed out or ignored. That was just the start of the reports. There were rumors that Joni was having problems with some important people in the church, including family members who used to be close friends. There was also talk about Joni's tense relationships with her children, with some sources suggesting that her family was beginning to feel the stress of her demanding leadership. People said that Joni wasn't the caring, faith-driven woman that many people had come to respect behind closed doors. Instead, they said she was someone whose ambition was beginning to take over the goal of Daystar. Not long after, reports of power battles spread, and all of a sudden, things looked like they were about to fall apart. When Joyce Meyer, a well-known and respected Christian leader, joined the talk, things became more serious. For a while, Joni and Joyce were close friends in the church community, but then there seemed to be a rift between the two. Some people thought Joyce Meyer had been talking more and more about her worries about Joni's leadership, but people who knew said Joni wouldn't listen. People who were following Meyer began to wonder if there was more going on than what they were told. What did Joyce see that no one else did? Was this a disagreement between two people? Or were there bigger, more worrying problems going on? As the story spread, it became hard to ignore the tension between how people saw them and how they really felt. In public, Joni kept acting like the strong, faith-driven leader who had always been dedicated to her goal. But rumors were going around behind the scenes that her leadership had become more about control than faith. Some people thought she might have used Daystar as a way to build her own reputation, one that was too connected to her personal life and goals. People began to wonder what was really going on at Daystar behind closed doors as the stories spread. What percentage of what the public saw was carefully chosen, and what percentage was just a well-built front? One of the worst things about the reports was that they said Joni had turned off not only her co-workers, but also her family. There were rumors that her children, especially her son Jonathan Lamb, who was very involved with running Daystar, were getting more and more angry with how she was running the business. Some people close to the family even said there might be a split between Joni and Jonathan, with the young Lamb reportedly feeling overwhelmed and left out. There were rumors that Jonathan felt helpless in the family business, and these rumors got stronger as he reduced his public appearances. People started to wonder if this was the start of the end for the Lamb family's control over Daystar. Were Joni's personal goals causing her family to grow apart? Then, when Joyce Meyer finally told more about what was going on, it was like the last piece of the puzzle fit together. The reports didn't seem like guesswork, they seemed to be based on real events. Joyce Meyer's words were just the tip of the storm when it came to the fighting between the Lamb family and Daystar. Everyone had the same simple question: what would happen next? Would Joni keep running Daystar, or had the walls finally come down around her? Would the Lamb family ever get over the cracks that seemed to be getting bigger every day? Breaking her silence, the reports about Joni Lamb were far from over. In fact, they were just starting to show what was really going on behind the scenes. Joyce Meyer finally told everyone the terrible truth. Joyce Meyer was always seen as a strong person in the Christian community. She was known for her straightforward teaching style and her unwavering faith. Many people looked up to the relationship she and Joni Lamb had for years, both emotionally and professionally. Together, they were important people in the faith community because of their organizations and their dedication to sharing God's Word. But when Joyce Meyer finally spoke out, it was clear that a big change had happened. The two women had been angry with each other for months or even years. People had noticed that their relationship was changing slowly. What had once seemed like a real bond was becoming less warm, but no one could quite explain why. Was it a fight between two people, a dispute about work, or was there something more going on? The idea that Joyce Meyer had was the spark that made everything happen. She had been quiet for a long time because she wanted to be polite and not say anything in public, but the pressure had grown so high that she could no longer stay quiet. Many people were surprised by how clear Joyce Meyer was when she spoke up. She said that she had been quietly watching Joni Lamb's habits change over the years, both as a person and as a boss. In an honest conversation, Joyce talked about the worry she had been keeping to herself for a long time. She said that what started out as a simple change in the way things were going had turned into something much worse. She began, "I've known Joni for a long time." Her voice was steady, but there was a weight to it that couldn't be broken. "We built something beautiful by working and praying together. Things began to change over time, though. It felt like the ministry we had all fought for was going in the wrong direction. No longer was it about helping other people, it was about helping one person. And it wasn't God." Those words were like a bomb going off. Joyce Meyer, a well-known and respected Christian leader, said that Daystar co-founder Joni Lamb was using the organization to make money for herself. It wasn't just a small change in direction. It was a complete rejection of the ideals that had brought them together in the first place. Joyce went on to say that Joni had become more and more interested in power over the years. Joyce said, "It's hard to see someone you used to call a friend go down this path." Her eyes were sad, as if the reality of the situation was finally sinking in. When you learn that this person is no longer doing God's work, but their own work with God as a cover, it hurts even more. There was a long pause while Joyce took a big breath. It was like she was saving herself for what she was going to say next. She told him, "I tried to talk to her. I tried to get in touch with her, to tell her of the things we had in common, but it wasn't working. I saw a new side of her that wasn't based on faith. I couldn't keep quiet any longer." What Joyce said sent shockwaves through the Christian community. A lot of people have known for a while that something was wrong at Daystar, but no one could have imagined how bad it would get. Joyce Meyer, one of the most recognized speakers in the Christian world, accused Joni of using the ministry as a personal platform. For years, she had been the face of Daystar and an example of faith and inspiration to millions of fans around the world. The response was quick and strong. People who supported Joni couldn't believe it. How was Joyce, a woman who had been there for her, now being so mean to her? They had no idea what made Joyce say what she did, and they were quick to support Joni. saying she couldn't have been using the church to get something for herself. They saw this as nothing more than a personal grudge or a mistake. But there were holes in the story that began to show. Some people who worked with Joni and were close to Daystar for years also spoke out, confirming what Joyce had said. He talked about how the church was becoming more divided, how power and control were becoming more important, and how Joni's behavior was changing in small but clear ways. People who used to whisper behind closed doors could now say them in public for everyone to hear. As the days went by, more information came to light. What Joyce said set off a chain of events that led to the truth that had been hidden for so long starting to come to light. Daystar, which used to be a great example of faith-based TV, was now going to have to face the consequences. The claims against Joni were too serious to ignore, and people started to wonder how much they really knew about how the church worked. Was everything they had seen just a carefully planned trick? Joni had been preaching her values for years. Were they really her values, or had her own goals changed them? The effects of Joyce's words hit Joni right away. In a public statement, she denied the claims, saying they were false and not based on any evidence. She stuck to her job as boss and said again that she was dedicated to Daystar and its goal. But her answer seemed to make things worse. As she spoke out, more and more people began to doubt her truthfulness. It looked like the base cracks were too big to fix with words alone. It was too late to act like everything was okay now that the truth was out. People who supported Joni stayed true to her, but they were becoming more and more alone in their support. More and more people, even in the church, started to doubt her ability to lead and guide Daystar. Some of her best friends had already started to pull away from Daystar's impact in a quiet way. There were changes in who had power in the ministry, and no one was sure what would happen next. It wasn't easy for Joyce Meyer to decide to speak out, but she had to. She tried to handle things behind closed doors, but when it became clear that nothing would change, she knew she had to tell everyone. In a follow-up interview, Joyce said, "I have always respected Joni because I worked with her for years. But I couldn't keep quiet any longer when I saw the ministry turning into something it wasn't supposed to be. I'm not here to put people down, but I'm also not going to keep the truth from you. The church needs to get back to its roots, which are faith, service, and honesty. That's the only way to move forward." The damage from Joyce's words had just begun. As rumors spread through the media, Daystar's followers split into groups. As more ministry members began to question their allegiances, one thing was clear. Everything had changed. Right now, the Lamb family, Daystar, and the whole Christian community were going through a very tough time. Everyone was thinking, what will happen next? How would Joni get over this scandal? Or was it the start of the end for her time as leader of Daystar? And would Joyce Meyer's move to speak out lead to bigger changes, or would it make the church even more divided? Time would tell. Response to the charges, Joni Lamb sat still in her office and looked out the window while tapping her fingers on the back of her chair. The view from her home was peaceful, with the rolling hills standing in sharp contrast to the storm that was building inside her. She was the beloved co-founder of Daystar and helped build the ministry from the ground up. For years, she was the face of the ministry. Marcus, her husband, and she worked together to make something special that changed the face of Christian TV for good. But now it looked like everything she had worked for and believed in was falling apart right in front of her eyes. Joyce Meyer's claims hurt Joni more than she thought they would. Years of trust and working together came to an end, with a few mean words from someone she used to think of as a close friend and supporter. Joyce's words, which were heard all over the world, showed a woman who had lost sight of the principles that had made Daystar so great and was driven by ambition and power. People said that Joni used her ministry as a stage for her own life and abused her power in a way that went against the faith she used to teach. Joni tried to ignore the media fuss at first. As always, she knew that people would be interested in the story. It felt different this time, though. The charges this time were too close to home. Their tone was personal. They weren't just about the ministry. They were also about who she was as a person and the woman she had become. Is it possible? Had she really lost her sense of right and wrong in her desire for power? She couldn't get rid of the questions for days afterward. There was more pressure. It rang over and over, and each call was scarier than the last. People in your family, circle of friends, and workplace called to say they were worried. Some offered support, while others chose to stay away. Joni felt like the walls were closing in on her. Always, she was proud of being the rock that everyone could count on to keep things together. But now, for the first time in years, the charges made her feel heavy. She wasn't just fighting for her image, she was fighting for her faith and the mission she had given her whole life to. Joni knew she had to speak out, even though it wasn't easy. She couldn't just let Joyce's words float away without responding. She had to clear the air for herself, her family, and the people who supported her. I took a deep breath, and then Joni sat down at her desk to write my answer. That was important to her. It had to be strong and real. There was no way to lie or deny what was going on. It was important for her to face the accusations head on and own up to her actions, no matter what they were. Before she said anything else, Joni said that she understood how Joyce's words had hurt her and caused misunderstanding. I know there are a lot of questions right now, and I want to answer them all, she wrote. I have spent more than 30 years of my life building a ministry that would change the world for Christ and spreading the gospel. I never meant for Daystar to be anything more than a place to share God's word, but I lost sight of the things that made this mission great along the way. I became focused on the wrong things, like leaving a legacy, staying in charge, and showing that I could do it. I let my own goals get in the way of my devotion to God and the people who trusted me. Joni's words were raw, honest, and open. She accepted that she had messed up and that her need for power and control had made her less smart. She also made it clear that she wasn't the woman Joyce had said she was. I'm not perfect, she said next. I've done bad things, but I've always tried to serve God with all my heart. I've always thought that being a leader in the church means being humble, not having power. I'm also sorry if I ever made someone think I cared more about myself than the goal. Even though she was being honest, her tone made it clear that she was guarded. Joni then said that the charges were wrong because they were based on errors and a skewed view of what she was trying to say. I know some people aren't sure about my leadership, she wrote, but I want you to know that everything I've done has been for God and His work. Even though I didn't always do the right thing, I always meant to. Daystar wasn't supposed to be about me. It was supposed to be about the word we want to send to the world. Joni also talked about the problems she was having with Joyce Meyer and admitted that their friendship had gotten worse over the years. She said, I'm sorry that our relationship has reached this point. I have always looked up to Joyce, and we worked together in ministry for many years. But I also think there are some mistakes that need to be cleared up. This is not only about Daystar, it's also about our hearts, why we do the things we do, and how we treat each other as Christians. As soon as her comment came out, it was picked up by the media. Different people replied. Joni's supporters gathered around her and gave her words of support and praise for her work in the church. They thought the charges were meant to bring her down and make the work she had done over the years look bad. Some people were less understanding, though. She tried to put the blame on other people instead of taking full responsibility, which was seen as contradictory by those who disagreed with her. People had different opinions, and the problem seemed to get worse. Joni didn't give up. She kept saying how committed she was to God and her mission in interviews and public events. Even though she knew it had caused pain, she claimed that Daystar's main goal had never changed. In a talk, she said, "We are still doing God's work. This is just a time to learn and grow. We are going to rebuild and move on." There has been no change in God's plan for Daystar. But no matter how determined she was, everyone still had one question. What would happen next? What would Joni Lamb do? Would she stay in charge of Daystar or step down and let someone else take over? The ministry was in a tough spot, and the future didn't look good. It was now unclear what would happen to Joni as well. Would she be able to fix the damage this news did to her character? Or would it be too much for her to handle? Johnny's answer was a mix of weakness, anger, and drive in the end. Even though she knew she had done wrong, she was sure that her heart had always been in the right place. The world might accept that fact, but that was still unknown. However, this was not the end of Joni Lamb's story. It was just another part of her ongoing journey of faith, forgiveness, and the search for real leadership in God's service. The real question was whether she could fix her ministry or whether the damage was too great to fix.